Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Hakodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS to give us his truth and all his purity, and salutations to all the Akim pushing this word throughout the four corners of the earth in sincerity and the truth. This is the brother Yahweh Sap, and this topic is going into the division that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai is, setting amongst these Edomites, which is the so-called white race as a whole. Right now you're seeing all these different tensions all over the earth due to Trump being in office. And, Trump is also having tensions not only with America's enemies, but with America's own allies, which is Nato and the EU. And we know the war is going on with Iran right now, and Trump had asked Spain to use their military bases to bomb Iran, but Spain denied because, they know what that means. That means, that they're involved in a war, which means that Iran would attack them too. And Spain, Italy, Southern Europe is not that far from the Middle East. So Iran can certainly reach those places. So Trump is not only putting America at risk, but those NATO countries, and because they have lines with those NATO countries will eventually have to join the war. And he knows that. So right here we got this article. The title reads, Trump threatens to cut off trade with Spain over Iran defense spending. Right here you see the devil.
Well, some of the European nations have been helpful and some haven't. And I'm, very surprised. Germany's been great. He's been terrific. Others have been very good, terrific. I think that the head of NATO, Mark, is fantastic. Okay, Mark Rutte. I think he's fantastic. But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
There you go. You hear the proud speech of this devil, which the scriptures say, matter of fact, let's get that America would have a more proud or stout look than their fellows, which is NATO and the EU. So this is the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse I'm going to start at okay. Matter of fact, I'm going to jump up, read a couple verses, and then I'm going to jump down. So this is Daniel chapter 7, verse, I'm going to start at 6. Now this is the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, showing the prophet Daniel a vision of all the future empires. So when you read the book of Daniel, you're literally reading through history, which back then our history was their future. But like the scriptures say, the former things are come to pass and new things does the Lord declare. And before he brings them forth, he tells us of them. So, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai has always been working, throughout all ages. The Lord never took no breaks, even during times where it seemed like the Lord took a pause. For example, the dark ages. It seemed like nothing was really going on, but that was prophecy because scriptures say that Satan would be bound for 1,000 years, So the Lord always been working, man, right? So this is Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. It says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. Now this is going into the Greek Empire. A leopard represents Alexander the Great because he swiftly conquered the earth in a amount of 12 years, which was unheard of. And also the leopard was his symbol. He walked around with a leopard coat, leopard skin, And there's I think there's a picture like that online that shows Alexander the Great with a leopard skin, right? So it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, which represents Alexander's 4 general who divided the kingdom amongst themselves. You can read that history in the book of 2nd Maccabees. Matter of fact, 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Starting with 1st Maccabees, the 1st chapter, it breaks that down, the history of the Greeks, And that's one of the reasons why the so-called white man took the Apocrypha out of the Bible, because it exposes their history. It would expose them as being that beast, that Satan, It would expose them as being the wicked. So they took that out. But it says 4 wings of a fowl, and the beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it, which is the Greek Empire. Verse 7, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, which the 4th represents Rome. It says, and strong exceedingly, which Rome was a very strong empire, the strongest empire in the whole world, which is why America models itself after Rome and boasts of Rome, because America is Rome 2.0, right? So Rome was dreadful, terrible, and strong exceedingly. And America has those same characteristics. It says, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, which it devoured and brake in pieces the other nations, starting with the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Why was Rome diverse from the previous empires? Because the leadership in Rome wasn't passed down from father to son. They were elected. They had a democracy, just like America. The American political system is devised after Rome. The 2 political parties, the plebeians and the patricians, are known today as the Democrats and the Republicans. So that's what made it diverse from all the different empires that were before it. It says, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Right, so those horns represents the different, empires / provinces, of strength that Rome had, right? Which those empires eventually got revived when the so-called white man Esau Edom came back into power during the Renaissance, which the word Renaissance means rebirth. What was it the rebirth of? The rebirth of the Roman Empire, right? So it says, there came up another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Now, this little horn represents America. And it says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, is because in order for America to be established, it had to take down France, Great Britain, as well as Spain, which represents the 3 horns that were plucked up by the roots. And I beheld, and this horn were eyes like the eyes of men, and a mouth speaking great things. It says, mouth speaking great things. Look at how, these devils talk. the proud speeches coming out of this administration, coming out of the World Economic Forum. These devils are boasting at an all-time high, which is how you know the Most High is about to bring judgment. Because anytime a nation's leader got that proud, like the king of Babylon and Antiochus, the Most High always took him down right after, right? So that's how we know the Lord is about to judge this place because of the current administration, right? It says, matter of fact, I'm going to jump down to verse Daniel 7 and 19. Then I would know the truth of the four beasts, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, which is America, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Right? So America has a more stout look than their fellows. And who are their fellows? The fellow Edomite empires, the fellow Edomite kingdoms, NATO and the EU. So America has a more stout look. Now, when we go to the word stout in the Hebrew is Rab, or Ab, it says Captain, Chief, Great, Lord, Master, Stout, right? So, Chief, Great, Lord, Master. America is that whore that rideth upon the beast, that's spoken of in Revelation, the 17th chapter, right? The whore that rideth upon the beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns. America controls NATO and the EU, which is why they all walk to the tune of Babylon. America wanted to use those bases for that UK has. At first, UK was against it, and then boom, they fell in line, right? All these European nations have fallen in line under Trump, right? Because America is, America is the owner of them, so to speak, the controller. America's riding the wheel. It says great, great, great Captain Chief, right? So that's Trump, right? He has that stout, his look is more stout than his fellows. And what is that creating? It's creating more tensions amongst themselves, amongst these Edomites, what is it? I think it's Matthew 12. This is Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. That's right. So if you have division amongst a kingdom, a house, or amongst, just in general amongst a group of people, it's not going to stand, You're not in agreement. So it's going to be torn apart, right? And that's what we're seeing, You have different Edomite empires with different ideologies, Spain is against this war. You got many other European countries that's against what Trump is doing, even Turkey, which we know in prophecy, Gomer, in the book of Ezekiel, the 30th chapter, Turkey itself is turning against NATO. A couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, they declined to allow, I forgot what country in East Europe, that they declined to allow them into NATO. And it was a whole thing back then. They said no. And America, which, it's all assumptions, but we know America has direct energy weapons, HARP weapons that could cause earthquakes. Because as soon as they declined, they got hit with a strong earthquake right after. I think the next day, So, I'm pretty sure the leaders amongst Turkey, they know what's going on. They know what happened. So, Right now you got Turkey, they're against the war in Iran, and they've been said that they will support Iran. So as the tensions keep escalating, we're going to see Turkey, which is a NATO ally, Edomite NATO ally. We're going to see them turn to Russia, Persia, which is Iran, and those other nations mentioned in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right? So that's that division. The kingdom of Edom is divided against itself, and it's being brought to desolation. We're seeing it play out right before our eyes. Verse 26, and if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? So Satan, which we know is one of the names for Edom, is divided against himself. So how can his kingdom stand? Because the only reason Edom, the so-called white race, is able to have this grip over the earth is not only because of NATO, not only because of America, but because of NATO too. NATO helps them keep that power up, because countries know America could pretty much handle their own, but they know that attacking America would mean attacking NATO as well. And these Edomites, they have the blessing of the sword. So these nations already know it's a death sentence, But now these devils are turning the sword against each other. They're turning their blessing against one another, So the kingdom cannot stand. It's only a matter of time before, they shoot at each other, which is prophecy, because these Edomites are causing trouble, is causing a lot of problems for these European Edomites. You got the war with Iran because of the Strait of Hormuz. It's caused prices of gas and oil to shoot up in Europe by 50 to 100%, doubling the cost of energy, right? That's because of Trump. So they know that, they see that, and the resentment is growing amongst these European nations, and eventually they're gonna break apart. Matter of fact, let me get Daniel first. This is Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. It says, "And the fourth kingdom, which is Rome, shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things," which is what the white man has done. The so-called white man has subdued the whole earth, through the way of the sword, which is his blessing. It says, "For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." And that's what they've done. They've broken in pieces and bruised many, many people, going all the way back to Greece, but really Rome, which is what this is talking about. But Rome has been revived as America and NATO, right? So they're doing the same thing as they did back then. Verse 41, "And whereas thou sowest the feet and the toes part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided." And that's what we see, part potter's clay, part of iron, which means what? The kingdom is partly strong and partly weak, So America's part of that iron, Germany's part of that iron, France, right? They're military powers, and NATO, and the potter's clay represents the weak ones, like Greece, Spain is one of them too, because they're kind of weak economically, right? And a few other ones. So it says, "But there shall be," it says, I'm going to read it again, verse 41, "Whereas thou sowest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength, it shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sowest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." So their kingdom is partly strong and partly broken. Now, when you go into the word for broken, the word there is thabar. And it says to break, broken in pieces. It says to be fragile, figuratively broken. So these different empires, such as, well, not empires, countries like Greece, Spain, they're fragile. Their economy is fragile, right? It only takes a little bit to put them over the edge, you know? And we see that with the war in Ukraine back a couple of years ago, they shot themselves in the foot because Russia was the one supplying them with energy, and when they went to war with Russia and allowed America to do these false flag attacks under Biden and destroy their pipelines, they don't end up paying, hundreds of percentages more in energy. And now they're about to pay even more because of Trump's war with Iran. So these European nations, they're pissed right now, They are walking to Trump's tune, doing what he says because they're scared. They know that the greater portion of their blessing of the sword was given to America. So they know not to fuck with Trump. So that's why they're all falling in line, Germany, France, and the UK basically are going to join this war with America against Iran. And that right there shows you that Americans can't handle Iran on their own because they got to ask for help, But it says back in Daniel 2, and I'm going to start at 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sowest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of man, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. That's right. So, they're not fully basically integrated with each other within this system, this world that they created. They still have divisions, differences, different ideologies, So they'll never fully agree. And eventually, that alliance is going to turn into, their own ruin. They're going to destroy each other. Let's see. Okay, this is Revelation chapter 17, verse 11. I'm going to start at 11. It says, and the beast that was and is not, he is the eighth and is of the seventh and goeth into perdition. Now we read, how the other little horn that's going to come up, that's all speaking about America, right? Is of the seven, those seven heads. America comes out of those different kingdoms. That is what birthed America. That's why they, boast of Rome and European civilization. And it says, and goeth into perdition because America is Babylon the Great. And the prophecy for Babylon the Great is total destruction, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, which is fiery annihilation. And that's what the Lord is prepping up with all these different nations preparing their missiles to shoot it at America. You got North Korea, Russia, China. Many countries have their missiles already pointed here. And soon it's going to be Iran. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And that all represents, the European Union, those different, countries that was part of it. Germany's in it, France, Spain, I think the Netherlands. I don't remember every one of them off the top, but, those are the 10 kings. It says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. That's why, once again, they all fall in line with America's foreign policies. Whatever America's foreign policy is NATO's foreign policy. Even if it's at the cost, of hurting themselves. You know, they always fall in line with America's policies. And that's, that's one reason why these their populations, they got protests. And that's one thing they, be talking about. Like, this is not our war. This is America's war. Why are we getting involved? Like, what's the benefit to us? It shows you that America is that whore that rideth upon the beast. Right? Verse 14, these shall make war with the Lamb. So Europe is going to make war with America. Eventually, they're going to get tired of America and shoot missiles at this place. And shall make war with the Lamb, but the Lamb shall overcome them. Oh, Slakia. These shall make war with the Lamb, Slakia. I thought it was talking about, I didn't, jumping the gun, but these shall make war with the Lamb. These European countries, they all have a space force. Well, not all of them. A few of them got a space force, and that's because they're getting ready to fight against the Messiah, Yahweh Shai. It says, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So there's nothing you could do against your maker, man. You're going to fight against your maker. That is literally insanity. But leave it up to Edom and their pride. They're going to try to fight against the creator of the heavens and the earth. And how's that going to end up for them? Total ruin, total annihilation, and slavery. And after that, total extermination after the 1,000 years of captivity. Right? It says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth, which the whore is America, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So America has dominion over the whole earth. This is a melting pot. Everybody wants to come here to the golden city, to basically make it, right? To get a better life, It says, in the 10 homes which thou sawest upon the beast, this is the point, these shall hate the whore. Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. These European countries are hating America right now because of Trump, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So they're going to turn their missiles at America and shoot it at this place, because they're going to realize, how much shit America put them in. Their economies are going to get totally annihilated. Their countries are going to get destroyed in this coming war with Russia and Iran. So at the end, they're going to be like, well, you know what? Fuck America, man. And they're going to turn it against this place, right? And shoot missiles at her. It says, for Yahweh Shem Shah have put in their hearts to fulfill his will. So this is the will of the Lord Yahweh Shem Shah. And this is why Trump or the army just said that they just told their civilians, not the civilians, the personnels, that they're going to war with Iran, and that war with Iran is Armageddon, and that it is Jesus Christ's plan. This is Jesus' will. Jesus anointed Trump to bring forth Armageddon for his second coming. Literally. This is what they're saying now, man. And this is how you know these devils know what we're saying is the truth. These devils watch us, right? What we're saying is the truth, man. Because how is it? This is what the military is saying. The military. And they supposed to be agnostic or atheists. Shouldn't they trust in their own power and their technology? Why are they looking to a so-called outdated book, a book of fairy tales, to go to war? Why are they saying this is the justification? This is God's will, pretty much. Why? Because they know what we're saying is the truth, right? So, hey, man, the word of the Lord stands supreme. For Yahweh Shem Shah put in their hearts to fulfill his will. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, right? And he turns it like the rivers, whatsoever he will. So all these geopolitical moves being made, decisions being made, it's all leading towards the, total grandiose plan of Yahweh Shem Shah. And to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of Yahweh Shem Shah shall be fulfilled. So these European countries are being governed by America. The beast is riding, the whore is riding that beast. They all give their kingdoms to America. But eventually, once again, they're going to turn against this place, especially with how Trump is embarrassing them and mistreating them, and bullying them. Greenland, all of that. All that stuff is all piling up that hatred that these Europeans have for Americans, right? It says, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, America, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. That's right. So, amen. I hope this was edifying. So with that, I'm going to close out and give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahshua Bashem Hakodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS to give us his truth and all his purity. And salutations to all the Akim pushing this word throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.